want our judges not to be just politicians in robes. But in order to do that, judges have to be able to make their decisions without fear of reprisals because people are unhappy with their rulings.
Welcome to Beyond the Ballot AZ. I'm your host, Tom Collins, Executive Director of the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission.
And I'm Gina Roberts, Voter Education Director for Clean Elections.
Today, we're covering the court system, public trust, and what the future of the judiciary might hold.
We're going to talk about how voters can educate themselves on our judges and justices and what they're doing.
And we still have, in smaller counties, we still have actual judicial elections where we've got Superior Court judges who have to submit their signatures and will be on the ballot. And then at the much local level, we have elected justices of the peace who are not necessarily lawyers, but you will, if you get a speeding ticket or something in a town, you might be in front of the JP. And then we have appointed judges at the city level. So we have a lot of different levels to this, and we're going to cover some of that, as Gina said, hopefully in this conversation. So stick around. Joining us today is former Arizona Chief Justice Scott Bales, who is a co-founder of the Alliance of Former Chief Justices, an organization of retired judges that has come together to defend and educate the public on the independence of the judiciary. As you're putting together this alliance and working on these, where do you see the pressure on the judiciary in terms of its independence and folks being more critical of it than they have been in the past?
Well, I think the pressures are occurring at almost every level of our courts, both state and federal. You, over the last year, for example, have seen some elected officials call for the removal of judges because they're unhappy with their decisions. Another type of threat is you see that in some state legislatures, proposals to limit the tenure of judges or at the state level to remove judges because they've made unpopular decisions. And I think the impact on having fair and independent courts, it's system-wide.
So I've worked in elections for almost 2 decades now, and I can tell you every time we have justices and judges on the ballot, voters are calling and they're saying, what's their political affiliation? Because that's not printed on the ballot. So how should voters find information and make informed decisions on whether or not, hey, should this person be retained?
Well, there is a lot of information for people who want to seek it out. There is a Judicial Performance Review Commission that every year leading up to the elections provides information on the retention of judges and provides information on how the judges have been evaluated by not only parties who appear before them, but also people who've been on juries, judges, other judges, lawyers. So you can gather that information. My own view is if people have gone through that evaluation process and found based on the process, which is based on more than just the survey information, but if the conclusion by the Judicial Performance Review Commission is that they've met the qualifications for judges, I think they should remain in office. A voter, I would hope, would be guided by the question, is this person competent? Are they doing what we would like judges to do in terms of meeting their duties? And that doesn't mean always ruling the way I might want the judge to rule, because sometimes the law dictates a different conclusion.
We had one ballot measure in 2024 about changing the way that we would address the judges' retention on an ongoing basis. We are in the beginning of our legislative session when this airs. Do you anticipate the legislature here in Arizona taking steps in that direction this year, or is that something that you expect them to leave by the wayside for the time being?
Well, I should, by way of background, say the system we have now for selecting and retaining the trial judges in our biggest counties and all of our appellate judges was adopted more than 50 years ago. It was adopted in 1974 by a citizen initiative. It wasn't supported by the legislature then, and almost perennially since, there have been efforts in the legislature to try to cut back or limit that system. The most recent one, which Tom mentioned, was Proposition 137, which would have basically limited the ability of voters to, by voting on retention, decide if judges would remain in office, but it would increase the legislature's role in the evaluation and disciplining of judges in ways that I and many other people thought was inconsistent with the separation of powers. So that's a roundabout answer to your question, but it would not surprise me if we see in this session, once again, efforts to modify a system of judicial selection and retention that we've had for 50 years and has served us very well. The voters, when they've been asked to modify it, have resoundingly rejected those efforts, but they seem to pop up again almost like poppies every spring.
Well, just to close out that point, I think that, that's been the view I've heard, that the fact that a judge who might fare poorly on the judicial performance review might not be retained is a validation of the interaction between the judicial performance review and the retention process, as opposed to, a sort of partisan. But I have personally received more information, for lack of a better way of putting it, from people in both parties around what judges I ought to vote for and what judges I ought to vote against in retention. That is, I've been doing, working in government for 20 years. I've not seen that until the last, 4 or 6 years. So we have this validation on the one hand, but we do really have an actual organized, even if not very well-funded, campaigns against judges. And I guess that's not something I assume you think is going to go away.
It's not going to go away, and it has been around for a while. When I was up for retention, and this may have only been my last retention election, there were some who distributed information that said that because I was appointed by this governor, that itself suggested that I should not be retained, which is really just saying that you should make your decisions whether to keep judges or not based on the party of the government or the governor who appointed the judge, which I think is totally wrong. Our merit selection system, which uses citizen-based commissions to identify qualified candidates at the front end, and then gives voters a check that allows them to remove judges who fail to meet performance standards at the back end, that has worked very well, and it doesn't depend on the party of the person appointing the judge or the party of the judge themselves.
How should a person have trust in the judicial system if the outcome is not what they were expecting in a particular case?
One thing that's kind of unique about courts is they have to, when they make their decisions, they generally have to issue a reasoned decision that explains how they have ended up with the result that they've ended up. There's almost no other branch of government or no other component of government that makes decisions that way. And I think it's important for people to understand that difference and to want to preserve that distinction. I think that in a time when views are very polarized, when there are a lot of allegations, accusations being made, people get bombarded all the time with messages that are almost deliberately meant to inflame people. I think it's really important that we have a part of our government where the decisions are based on carefully assessed evidence as distinct from just allegations or accusations. And the decisions have to be explained on a reasoned basis and justified by generally applicable principles, that is, law. That's really what it means to say we need to have a rule of law in forums to resolve certain disputes, and people may be unhappy with the outcome in a particular case, but it's vitally important that we have that kind of process, that we have a place where we're going to decide things based on actual evidence as opposed to unsubstantiated claims, and that the reasons for the decision are going to be something more than just because the decision maker wants one outcome or the other.
So I told you all this. I don't know if I told you all this, but I worked for Justice Bales, my first job I had out of law school. So this is like a
full circle for you.
But not the first job you had.
No, not the first job I had. No, but this is so it's kind of This
is like your dream show is made for you.
That's for me. Yeah. Actually, it's not long enough. I got about 100 more questions. So.
Payback.
There you go.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Ballot AZ. I'm Tom Collins.
And I'm Gina Roberts.